What's up, guys? Welcome back to our walkthrough of classic poetry. I'm in another one of my favorite spots, and today I'm excited because I want to go over my favorite poem of all time, which is Recuerdo by Edna St. Vincent Millay. Now, Recuerdo is just a really beautiful love story. Recuerdo is actually a Spanish word, and it means remembrance or to remember, and presumably it's a poem written by Edna St. Vincent Millay as a tribute to one of her beloved that she knew at one time. And it's a really beautiful love story. It's a little bit difficult to tell exactly everything she's saying on the first read through, so I thought we would read it and then we can discuss it a little bit, and I think you're really gonna love this poem. Like I said, it's my favorite poem of all time, and it's just a really touching love story. So let's go over it and then discuss it, and like always, it's written down below so you can follow along as I read aloud. Here's Recuerdo. We were very tired, we were very merry, we had gone back and forth all night on the ferry. It was bare and bright and smelled like a stable, but we looked into a fire, we leaned across a table. We lay on a hilltop underneath the moon, and the whistles kept blowing and the dawn came soon. We were very tired, we were very merry, we had gone back and forth all night on the ferry. And you ate an apple, and I ate a pear, from a dozen of each we had bought somewhere. And the sky went wane, and the wind came cold, and the sun rose dripping a bucket full of gold. We were very tired, we were very merry, we had gone back and forth all night on the ferry. We hailed, "Good morrow, mother," to a shawl-covered head, and bought a morning paper, which neither of us read. And she wept, "God bless you," for the apples and the pears, and we gave her all our money but our subway fares. Now, if you didn't get everything that was happening on that first read through, that's okay. I encourage you to read it a couple more times after we're done with this video. But the thing that just really impressed me about this poem was just how Edna was able to elucidate just how little this couple cared for what was going on around them. They were just so happy and wrapped up in one another's presence that they really didn't care at all what was happening around them as long as they were together. And you get this right away in the initial passage. She starts off by saying, we were very tired, we were very merry, we had gone back and forth all night on the ferry. It was bare and bright and smelled like a stable, but we looked into a fire, we leaned across a table. So she paints this picture of, being in the early 1900s, if you're on a ferry, it's not like a modern ferry that's carrying people and automobiles. It's an old early 1900s ferry, which means it's carrying people and horses. That's why she makes special note of saying it smelled like a stable. So she opens up with a scenario of two people just floating back and forth all night in a wooden box that smells like manure. And that would be torturous to the rest of us. If you told me that tonight I'm gonna have to stay up all night long and all I'm going to do is float back and forth in a wooden box that smells like manure, I would say that's one of the worst nights of my life. And that's kind of the point, she's trying to highlight that these two are just so happy to be in one another's presence that it really doesn't matter where they are or what they're doing. And it's just such a nice setup to this poem because it's a little bit goofy when you first read it, like what's she talking about? And then how she said it was bare and bright and smelled like a stable, but we looked into a fire, we leaned across a table. So you just get this image of these two sitting across from one another, and she said we looked into a fire. And the way that I think you can interpret that is they're staring into one another's eyes, and the fire that they're looking into is just the fire of love, the passion that they feel for one another. So you just get this picture of an empty room with these two lovers just sitting at a table staring across from one another, floating back and forth all night in a room that smells like manure. So even though it's kind of a goofy setup, it's just a really cool way of describing what love is like. Because I think for most of us, the temptation when writing love poetry is just to kind of be gushing about how we feel. We use all the cliches like, oh, I love you more than life itself, I love you more than the breath I breathe. And we're gonna say all these things, it's like, yes, we're gushing, this is how we feel. But Edna just paints such a beautiful and subtle picture of what it's really like when two people are in love. She doesn't have to tell you, yes, these two love each other more than life itself, yes, they love each other more than the breath they're breathing. But Edna uses a lot of subtlety to just really describe what it's like when two people are fully in love. And that's what I really first appreciated most about this poem. It continues on in the second stanza where she says, you ate an apple, I ate a pear, from a dozen dozen of each we had bought somewhere. Like they further just don't even really know what's going on around them. They wanted an apple and a pear, so they just bought a dozen of each, because you know the nature of love is that it's gushing. It just always overdoes everything, right? Like one apple isn't enough, we'll buy a dozen. But then the thing that I think makes this poem so beautiful and makes it stand apart is when she transitions in the third stanza. It says, "We hailed good morrow, mother, to a shawl-covered head." So this couple in the third stanza, they identify this poor old woman. Well, how do we know that it's a poor old woman? Well, a couple of clues. It says they hailed, like they said, "Good morning, mother," which means that she was an older lady, and they describe her as a shawl-covered head. And in a subsequent line, it says, "She wept, God bless you, for the apples and the pears." So they obviously gave her all the food that they had, which was very touching to this old woman because she was poor. And what Edna is trying to show is that genuine love is so gushing and just so glad and good-spirited that it just wants to bless people who are less fortunate. And I think that really is the subtle glory of love. You know, when genuine love expresses itself, it always makes the world a better place, and it always wants to bless and touch the less fortunate. And that's what's really the transition that happens in this third stanza, where the old woman wept, "God bless you, for the apples and the pears," and then it goes so far as to say they gave her all their money except what they needed to just continue on their journey together. We gave her all our money but our subway fares. And it's just such a beautiful way of ending the poem, because they only kept, this couple only kept what they needed to keep going on their journey of love, right? They wanted to go on the subway next, and who knows where else they were going. That's why the poem ends in such a beautiful way. We wish we could continue, you know, on the journey with them, but we can't. That's the end of the story. So this poem is just such a beautiful description of love, because it just so perfectly describes what really is the magnificent thing that love is. You know, how it just blesses the less fortunate, and it's always wanting to show compassion on people that are in difficult circumstances. You know, if all of us had a love like this, the world would be a much better place. You know, we would realize, yeah, we don't need everything that we're striving for. We can get by with less. You know, we have something so good here that we don't need to spend all our time getting the most money we can for our retirement and the biggest house and, you know, that great promotion and that sports car. Like, we can settle for less, because the love that we found is so great that all this other stuff kind of just pales in comparison. And so I really love to read this poem from time to time, because it's a great reminder of, you know, what's really worth striving after and what is worth spending our time pursuing. Because when you find something like this, it kind of makes everything else pale in comparison. And so I really hope you like this poem, and I really hope you'll spend a couple minutes giving it a second and a third read, because like I said, I just find this poem so beautiful, and it's my favorite poem of all time, and hopefully it's about to become your favorite poem of all time. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time.